All right, let's go ahead and get to our last and final topic of the
Truth,
day.
lies, shenanigans.
All right, and that's me. So on Wednesday, President Joe Biden announced his plan to forgive up to $10,000 in federal student debt for people making less than 125,000 a year. He also announced that he'd be extending the payment pause for federal loans that was implemented back early in the pandemic. But of course, not everyone agrees with the plan. Most Democrats agreed, but a few claim that there were better ways to spend the money, like a few people would have preferred eliminating medical debt, claiming it was far more fair and equal for those people that never went to college. And of course, all the Republicans hated the plan, including Rob's girlfriend, Marjorie Taylor Greene, calling out the
Oh,
White
Well,
House, claiming it
that's your
wasn't
girl.
fair.
That's your girl. That's your boo thing, Rob.
that's
Oh,
my girl, Cro-Mag Taylor.
Cro-Mag Taylor.
Cro-Mag
she,
Taylor Green.
She called out the White House, claiming it wasn't fair for the government to forgive this debt because some people, quote, played by the rules and paid off their debt already. But what was funny was the White House clapped back on Twitter, retweeting their comments and then attaching some receipts showing where a ton of Republicans, like Rob's girlfriend uh, and Trump's buddy Matt Gaetz and others, received hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars of PPP business loans during the pandemic, and they had their debt forgiven just a year ago or so.
ah.
Then
Hmm.
Senator Elizabeth Warren took it a step further, pointing out that old ass Senator McConnell graduated from a school that costs $330 a year and has done nothing to fix skyrocketing college tuition. That's like well over like $50,000 a year in many cases.
Hmm.
But for some reason, he's irate that the president is stepping up to help millions of working Americans drowning in debt. So, my question to you guys, is this the right thing to do? Will it even help? And if not, what would you have used the money for? Let's start with Liz on this
Of course, it's the right thing to do. And I speak as someone who has 3 degrees, who at one point had over $100,000 of student loan debt, paid most of it off, cried when my first two big loans was paid off. I cried.
Hmm.
I cried. But do I feel like, oh, well, I had to pay mine, so everyone else should have to pay theirs? Absolutely not. How selfish can you be? Listen, education equals power in a capitalist society, in a democracy. And this is another example of conservatives, of Republicans, of white males in this country trying to stick it to poor people, trying to stick it to the lower classes and make it so that it's not a level playing field.
one. Yep.
Listen,
Yep.
think about what we pay taxes for, okay? We pay taxes for, or let me even take it back even further to Jim Crow. Black people for years paid taxes for school, for libraries, for public parks and recreation, for pools, all of those things that we legally could not use. But we were still
Mm.
getting taxes taken out of our paychecks. Okay. We also give tax exemptions to mega churches. We get tax exemptions, to bail out the banks. I think it was in 2017, Trump gave tax exemptions or bailouts to the wealthy. So why
Yeah,
can't
tax
we
breaks.
give young people, college students, try to alleviate the debt that they have coming out of the block so they can try to get a job that all of their money isn't going into paying all of this student loan debt. And let me say something about the debt. It's not even the actual loan, it's the interest. It's the
Oh,
interest that
yes.
gets people.
Yeah.
And so that's something that needs to change, that pisses me off. And then beyond this conversation, nobody is still talking about how expensive it is to educate people post secondary
Yeah.
education in this country. This is why
Yep.
people are taking out loans, is because it costs so much to go to college. That's the big
Yeah.
issue. But do
Yeah.
I have a problem with this? Absolutely not. More
No,
power to them.
that's right.
More power to them.
Robbie?
More power to them.
Yeah. Is this a good thing? Yes. Could the money have been used differently? Also, yes. Are people without student loans that qualify for debt forgiveness crying foul? Also, yes. But I think that this is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I was reading that nearly 8 million borrowers may be eligible to receive debt forgiveness automatically because the Department of Education already has their income information. That's unreal. And from my personal experience, we'll go back a little way, but when I was a single dad on a fixed income living in geared to income housing and was going to school full time, I needed an OSAP loan, which is basically an Ontario based loan to go to school. And this, I was able to complete my undergrad, I was able to attend teachers college. And while I was on campus, while I was during my student career, I marched from our school campus to our member of parliament's office for lower tuition. Um, I was really fortunate when it came time to repay my student loans because I was able to secure a lower interest loan for the full amount of my student loan with the help of my dad. So I was
Nice.
paying a lower interest rate. So that was a bonus. And then sometime after I had graduated and moved everything over, I received a check from the Student Loan Association for a pretty reasonable amount just before Christmas. And I had to call them, find out what was going on. And it turned out that because of the timing of my loan and the changes in regulations, I qualified for loan forgiveness, but I was outside of the system. So they had to pay me out just with a check. But
Nice.
with that money, Neil, I was able to fix my car. I was able to pay off a chunk of my student loan and better provide for my kids. And the
Mm-hmm.
changes in the rules also meant that future borrowers would not be disadvantaged or burdened like I was. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
all for the changes in these rules because
Mhm.
if you do have that opportunity, they create those opportunities for you to get into school, whether it be community college, whether it be college. I think that this is just a wonderful thing that anyone who's crying foul on this needs to really check because I love what Liz was, what you've all been sharing about, like, does other debt forgiveness, interest forgiveness, just for the rich. Well, no, it's the people at the other end of the spectrum that need these breaks to create opportunities so that we can then prop up everybody else around us.
All right, Johnny, the college student.
This I'm gonna be a little bit different, but I do agree personally. This will affect me positively, of course, because it'll get rid of a lot of my personal student loan debt. So I'm excited about that. But I feel like, in theory, it's not a bad thing. I think the plan could have been better instead of just giving like you guys said, like a temporary relief to just the student debt. It could have changed like the system of pursuing and attending college. So they make college kind of seem like it's a guaranteed
Mhm.
investment in a way, like you're guaranteed to make this amount as soon as you finish, and that's obviously it makes no sense and it's not proven. So I think it would be interesting to see like colleges actually receive tuition from students after like the fact, when like those students are in their careers, or
Interesting.
like if their careers afford them to pay back those schools. Or I think that like the
Mm.
funding for schools like on a state level could be based on that school or that state or something.
Mm.
But I think that they just need to, I don't know, I'm trying different, I'm saying different things because I feel like there needs to be a change in the system in general.
Yeah,
Like,
so you're throwing
thank
out
you,
you're
Biden, for this.
brainstorming.
So,
Yeah,
Johnny, I'm going to
I'm
bring
giving
it back. I'm going to bring it back to the idea that I keep throwing out there, but it's something that Americans are very averse to. Higher taxation for everyone to provide better opportunities for everyone.
See,
That's
I
if
don't
you want to
even know
bring
that you
call.
need higher taxation to solve the problems we're talking about.
Yeah, you do.
yeah.
Well, but
Not the
also the
That's
specific
part
part.
of it. That's part
No.
of
that's
it.
N
it would
n
have to be a total change with the infrastructure because that would
It
only
would.
apply to state schools. There are gazillion private universities. Like I went for undergrad, I went to the University of Colorado. However, for grad, I went to NYU. NYU is private.
Ah,
They can charge however
whatever they
much
want,
they
and which
want,
is fine, yeah.
and
but that's
which is
fine though.
fine.
Yeah.
But taxes doesn't apply to that. The federal government can't tell them what they can charge for tuition. So it would
But
work
then it puts it
possibly
in
at
your
this.
hand.
So so real quick,
It
I
would
Sorry.
work possibly at the state level, but private, it There just needs to be some type of overhaul that I don't even think we have the capability
Yeah.
to enforce.
So
If you get what I'm saying, like it's
I can
I
Yeah.
just want to say, I mean, I get some of the argument that the same amount of money could be used to forgive medical debt or some stuff like that. But I hate when
and
people
not
try to
everyone has
argue.
medical debt.
Right, that's true. And I hate it when people argue about like there are better ways to get one thing done by dealing with another problem. I don't see why we can't just solve both issues. Why can't we solve college debt and medical debt issue
yeah, why not?
independently?
Mhm.
No,
But
my
also
biggest
everyone doesn't have medical debt, so that's not even a fair
That's true.
right,
argument.
exactly. And then I think my biggest problem with it was it's not a lot. I mean, it's $10,000 is piddly shit. I
It's
mean,
could you say that how you can yell it? $10,000 is not a lot
you know,
for
most
the
people coming out of
average
school
person who
looking
has loans.
at least $50,000 in
Again,
debt. You know, and
Mhm.
you know, they
I was at six
say
figure.
they
I was
said
at
that the
six figure.
I had to look it up because I was trying to figure out like they say that the plan will completely wipe out debt for about 20 million people, and that leaves about 23 million people still with remaining debt. That's lots of debt, but see what it doesn't include is those people with those private loans, the ones where there
Mhm.
wasn't enough federal money
Yeah,
to cover the actual tuition, right? So
the
I'm
went
seeing
I'm
Sally.
thinking similar to what Johnny was saying was I'd like to see more done with making community college and public universities free or at least very well subsidized so that there's reasonable maximum like this a reasonable amount that a person has to pay out of their money out of their pocket,
Yeah.
you know, and when I said that you may not need to raise your taxes, you know how much money they're spending supporting fossil fuels and how much money they're spending just supporting, for example, Ukraine alone. I mean,
Or no, or even before you get to that, just the defense budget. The
right, the defense
defense
budget.
budget
I mean, if we
is
just
ridiculous.
reallocated or policing, if we reallocated some of the funds properly, we may have to raise taxes, yes, but I don't think it would be such a
they would
significant thing that it could hurt us
Well,
so much if we just rediverted some money. Go ahead, Liz.
as a Washingtonian, I'm never going to advocate for raising taxes in Washington D.C. until we become a state. So hell no, hell taxation without
I don't like
representation
you
in the
raising
city,
a
Right.
hell no. But think about it this way again. In the United States is the only country in this world where secondary education across the board is this expensive. In Europe, I mean, you could go to university for next to nothing. And we're talking about some of the best STEM, scientific, mathematical minds in the world in other countries, and they are not beholden to all of this debt. It's greed, it's a sense of privilege. The privilege comes in with all of these Republicans who are crying foul. But like you guys pointed out, let's talk about all of this money they take from the government for free on their own in other
Mm-hmm.
areas,
Yep.
specifically,
Mhm.
the bailout or the
Mm-hmm.
PPP loans and all
Mm-hmm.
of that stuff.
Millions of
They have a
dollars.
lot of
Millions of dollars
hundreds of millions
to
of dollars. They have a
themselves.
lot of nerve. They have a lot of
Yes.
nerve. They have a lot of
To
nerve.
themselves.
All right.
Mhm.
Real quick, let's see. We've got a lot of comments online. So this is Jacqueline Robinson, the slattern with the E-cloven hooves, aka Rob's boot thing. Should have just sat there and ate her food. It's the right thing to do, and this faux class warfare that the GOP wants to start is supremely disingenuous. Jose says, louder for the people in the back. Yes. Ade Boyega says, it's the right thing to do. I'm glad President Biden did this. Sherry Blaine Savory. This was a very, this was a super, I'm sorry, I was super interested in this topic. I wonder why the root cause of the initial costs could not be addressed in the first place. Give people a break at the
Mhm.
beginning when it counts, not bill just to create debt and then forgive it in the end. Seems there could be a better way. Speaks to what Gianni was saying.
Yeah.
Adebuyega says, I know the preferred amount should have been $50,000, but this is a wonderful start to debt forgiveness, and you can
Mhm.
add to this down the line. Yeah, it's a start. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And Robin
it's a
Johnson, the loan debt is such an albatross around the neck of millions. And then let's More comments still popping up. Hold on. Jacqueline Robinson, there are for-profit schools that prey on low income and unemployed people with the promise of a degree or certificate and job placement. They end up having to start over again when the degree or certificate isn't accepted by an accredited school or a potential
Yes.
employer. Sherry
Yes.
Blaine
Yeah.
says, I agree, Neil Nix, making education affordable in the first place is where I'm at. All right. Who is this truth, lies, or shenanigans?
This is some truth for
Truth.
you.
Truth. Yes.
Truth.
Thank you, Biden.
And let me
I mean,
just
I don't
say,
have any
one of the
student
reasons
debt.
why
I did what did I do? What did Marjorie say? She said I did it the right way or whatever. I already did that, so I paid off
and that's
Yeah,
so
my debt.
offensive. That really is so
It really
offensive. You
is
have people, students who are going to school trying to do things the
the
right
right
way.
way. Yep.
And
Yeah.
when they
Exactly.
graduate, they come out, they have all of this debt, and they're not even getting jobs that will help them
Unemployment's
dwindle
horrible.
that day down.
Yep.
It's awful, but again, it comes from a place of privilege
Yep.
because a
No
lot of
question.
these
Oh yes.
Republicans who are talking all this mess don't have student loan debt.
No.